Hello and welcome to Build Back Better. I'm Dawn Lyle from For the Region. Today we're going to have a really inspiring conversation with our friend and member Louis, who is founder of Webmarketer, an innovative online marketing company. Louis, thanks for talking to us today. Nice to see you.
Hey, nice to see you too, Dawn. Thanks for having me on.
So we're delighted to have you as a member of our alliance, and really great to kind of follow the growth of your business over the last year or so. But before we get into some of that, tell me a little bit about you. What's your journey been, and how did you come to set up your own company in South West Wales?
So I've always been really risk averse. And so I think that's part of the reason it took me 10 years of being a career marketer to start my own business. I graduated as a graphic designer, believe it or not. And I kind of always knew that I was never going to be great. I wasn't really that good at graphic design. I just knew that wasn't going to get me out of bed in the morning longer term. You know, I didn't really want to live to be a graphic designer that was not that great at being a graphic designer. So I knew the kind of the graphic design agency was out of the question because a certain skill level was needed to go down that route. And so what I thought was, well, I might not be able to work for an agency, although that might be that would be really cool if I could do that at some point. So what I decided to do is I started to look for in-house design roles, and thought I'd just collect experiences basically as time went on. So I found this job that was like, you will work on projects for kind of Microsoft and Intel and AMD and NVIDIA graphics and all of these big name kind of IT companies. So okay, cool, I'll have that for my portfolio. And very quickly, I was designing kind of packaging and kind of product illustrations and things like this. And very quickly, I started moving into helping the company with designing for marketing. So like advertising placements on websites, designing mail shots, and all things like that. And I just found myself getting more and more interested in kind of making designs and then looking at the data and speaking to the sales team for feedback about what happens when they went out into the world. And I found that just absolutely fascinating, and started kind of making conscious changes to designs and actually speaking to the sales team to go, okay, so how did that perform? How did this one perform? And just making notes of what was working and what wasn't. So I enjoyed kind of 3 years in that role, over which time we actually had our first son, Jake. And we were living in Cardiff. So my partner, Angharad, she'd spent the last 4 years in university in Newcastle. For the last few months of pregnancy and the first few months of Jake's life, I was working most of the day, and she was kind of at home without really a community to be integrated with. So quickly we decided we'd move back to Carmarthenshire, which is where I'm from. And I spent a good kind of 10 months commuting back and forth to Cardiff before finding a role in West Wales, which was great. I didn't have the best time in that role. It was quite challenging, and I think if I'd have had more experience, I'd have been able to make a better go of it. So I saw this job opportunity to pop up, and it was the dream job. It was to promote Swansea, Mumbles and the Gower as a digital marketing officer. So I was kind of looking at it. My job is to tell people to go to the beach, and that's what I do. And it was really exciting because the Facebook page at the time had around 10,000 Facebook followers, which was a big deal for me as an aspiring digital marketer by that time. And the website was getting 100,000 visitors to it every year. And the kind of objective was to improve the digital marketing and to increase the traffic to the website. So that was great. I got to kind of live back home. I never really thought that I would get the opportunity to move back to Carmarthenshire, where I grew up, and I loved the rural friendly nature of it. I loved in Login, where I grew up, we were kind of 40 minutes from about 40 different beaches, and in Llanelli, you're right on the coast again. So that was something I really didn't want to give up, and I kind of was always a little bit hesitant about the future of my career, because it's kind of like, well, marketing is a big city profession, right? At minimum you've got to be in Cardiff, possibly Bristol, probably London. So there was always that thing in the back of my mind, is like, I want to live in Carmarthenshire, I want to live in West Wales, but I've got these big city ambitions. So it was great that I could say that I had a proper digital marketing job whilst being able to live in Carmarthenshire in West Wales. So that job went really well. I was able to add 100,000 unique visitors a year to the website. And we did some really good work, actually. We used a lot of the research that the team were doing, and a lot of the online analytics that I was kind of looking at, to build out a whole new part of the website And just from doing that, just from like kind of listening to what people were looking for and understanding what people were trying to do, we took the website from generating, I think it was 1,200 email subscribers a year to like 35,000 plus in the year that we put this kind of the findings of our research live. And so a year after that, I was promoted to be a kind of senior marketing officer. And I then straddled across the tourism team and also then the marketing services, which was kind of responsible for all the culture and heritage offering, the kind of, the events and kind of promoting all of that side of things for Swansea Council, which was great. I didn't get to experience that for a huge amount of time because I think 8 months or so into that, I was actually headhunted then into an advertising agency. So I joined Crunchly Digital, who are a really innovative advertising agency based in SA1. And they focus on kind of recruitment and education marketing, like online advertising for those specific markets. And that was when I really kind of took the skills that I had and learned to apply them to an online advertising capacity. And kind of after 3 years of working really, really hard, really luckily, I had a family member kind of go, well, I can see you're working really, really hard. I don't think you'd actually be working that much harder if you set up your own business. What would it take for you to set up your own business? And I kind of said, well, it's, I've got a young family at home. It's a salary thing. Like it would be the risk of things go wrong, family doesn't eat. So quite luckily I had the offer of, well, what if I could cover your salary for a maximum of 12 months? Would you be able to make a go of it? And so, yeah, I bit the hand off, obviously. And actually it only took 3-4 months before, I was writing these cash calls, what they call cash calls every month, go in. I expect over the next month, we're going to need this much money to stay afloat. And we only did that for, I think, four or 5 months out of the total for the 12 months. So yeah, so that was kind of the long version. I told you I'd try and keep it as short. That was the short version.
Wow, no, that's great, Louis. I mean, that's great to hear that story. And there's loads you can sort of pull out of that. I mean, it's amazing to hear that you're, in that lucky position of having a family member to support you in those early days of starting your business. When I started my computer graphics company in 2003, I didn't have a family member as such, but at that point, the Welsh government was running this scheme called CEF. It was a European money scheme called the Knowledge Exploitation Fund. And what that basically did was pay entrepreneurs a minimum salary for a period of 9 months to give you some space to set up your company. And I always thought that was the best support that you could get, because it's just that you need. You just need enough to live on in order to develop your business full time, don't you? And to give you that sense of security to take that leap and take that risk. And so, yeah, that's an amazing gift that you had from a family member. And we'd love to see more entrepreneurs across South West Wales having that kind of backing, that kind of support. Really amazing. And I loved what you said there, really, about your expectations of what your career ambitions could look like if you stayed in our region versus if you went off to kind of have a big city career. And I bet a lot of young people across our region feel the same, that they've got these ambitions of career paths they want to follow, and they just doubt whether they could do those locally in Swansea, Carmarthenshire, Pembrokeshire and Neath Patul, but are those opportunities here? So really interesting, the journey you've been on to realise actually you've had some fantastic career opportunities, both with the local authority, it sounds like, and with Crunch Digital. And there are increasingly some really dynamic creative and digital agencies in our region that can provide great career opportunities. So that's a lovely sort of lesson that you learned, and hopefully something we can share with other young people. You don't have to go away and try and build your career here, because you never know what opportunities there are until you start looking. And people don't realise, do they, what fantastic firms we have in our region.
That's it. And I'm a strong believer, because I do kind of pinch myself sometimes, because it feels that everything fell into my lap. But then I do have to remind myself that I spent 10 years like collecting experiences, like really, really learning hard and implementing what I learned. And also I was lucky enough to have managers that gave me the freedom to test things and run with things and kind of put them in motion. And I think that's a really important thing, is that you absolutely can work in the region and kind of really, really go for it. And almost what we're seeing as the world is changing, is that those kind of more organic, wholesome values that you get from, I would say more rural or lower population communities really translate well into business situations. We're one of our key things in Web Marketer is that we're always conscientious. We have 3 core pillars that are transparency, integrity, and excellence. So it's about being honest, and it's about always doing the best work for your clients, but actually it's also about really, really pushing forward to be the best that you can be through that. Because if you're going to be honest, and if you're always going to tell the truth, and if you're going to open everything up for full transparency, then you've really got to make sure that you're good at what you do. And I'm not saying that you have to be the finished article. It's more a mindset of always being on that path of constant improvement. And I think if you're a self-starter, if you're hungry for information, and if you're always getting that information and putting it into practice, really all you've got to do is build your network and put yourself out there, and you can do anything from anywhere, really.
Yeah, I mean, I really echo that, and it resonates with me as well in our journey. You just got to do the best that you can do and build those relationships as strong as you can. The honesty and the integrity and the building of relationships is just so key. But you don't have to be the finished article. My career path was different in a way because I started a company straight out of university, so I never had any work experience really, apart from like holiday jobs and weekend jobs. And my mum said at the time, don't you think it'd be more sensible to go and get some work experience before you strike off on your own? So we took a different path, but very similar in terms of our attitude to just do our best and try and be the best that we can be at what we're learning to do. And you just learn along the way, and you can create an amazing business and an amazing career for yourself if you believe that. So I appreciate everything you've said there, Louis. Tell us, Louis, then, what's it been like the last couple of years? COVID has obviously been a massive change. How has that impacted your business?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting one for us, because I think to a certain extent we were quite fortunate as to where we were in the business, because lockdown hit and we were just over a year old as a business, and we'd been very, very careful to kind of grow slowly, grow and kind of try and be smart about it. So every day we were rocking up to Tech Hub in Swansea or the NatWest Entrepreneur Hub in Cardiff, and our office fit in our backpacks. So we'd turn up in the morning and laptop out of the backpack, pad of paper out, pens, and we were away. Technically and equipment wise, transfer into a working from home scenario was not that difficult. And I think from what we've seen, and I know lots of different people will see lots of different scenarios, but I think for us it was definitely like a people disruption was the biggest thing. People were having to adapt to different scenarios working from home, and having to different environments. Some of the team working from a place where the whole family are working from home, so actually finding a room or having to nip off to different rooms where they can make calls in private or without impacting on someone else's work. I think that was really the key thing. And actually, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, right? Because with being such a young business as well, the downside is, we weren't super established. We were still, you think about it as a person, in your first 12 months of business, and I know you'll appreciate this as well, is that you're still kind of finding your feet. You're in startup mode, taking in everything, trying to make sense of the world that you're living in, and trying to kind of start to grow up in a kind of rapid way in that sense. We had a bit of a scary first month of lockdown. We lost, I think, between 3 and 4 opportunities in the pipeline that were like basically about to come off, and we also lost 3 or 4 clients at the same time. So we took a huge hit in the very first month. But then in the second month, 2 of the clients came back. I think they just had a little bit of a fear of what was about to come, and 2 of the opportunities that fell out of the pipeline came back as well. And from that point on, we continued to grow on the same trajectory as we had previously. We were dealing with a very different situation, having to adapt. Like I said, I think after that point, the biggest impact was on our clients, on our team, on all the different situations, and also on the audiences that we were advertising to. So a number of our clients, and 2 of the clients that we lost actually were, business to business services, but business to business services that relied on brick and mortar offices. So trying to promote those services or those products when there's no one in offices, like the demand for that just fell out the floor. So it was really, really interesting. September is our end of year, and we finished having grown. We hit our growth target, which was really, really great. But almost immediately after, within a couple of months, when we got into 2021, like January and February were a little bit scary, if I'm being honest. You know, we were never in any financial trouble. Like, we've always been quite smart. We're conscious that now we're employing people. We've got people that we have a responsibility for keeping in a job, but for making sure that they're okay. And our team is always something that we're really conscious to think about first and foremost. So, you know, we've always got kind of 6 months to rely on. But in January and February, we made no sales and we had no inquiries, which was just unheard of, because I've usually got a few inquiries coming in pretty much every week. So it was just like a, you know, is this really like what things are going to look like for the future? Is this just a blip? Like, what's happening? And I think there was a few things at play. I think the lockdown kind of, for us, it obliterated all of the communities that we were involved in. You know, we weren't able to go networking. We weren't able to kind of have those coffee catch-ups that we were usually able to do. I've always tried to be really active in the community, kind of go into networking events, go into talks, trying to run a couple of talks every year, meeting people for coffees, and just generally, you know, especially in the co-working spaces, if anyone had any kind of trouble with marketing or anything like that, I'd always be happy to grab a coffee and kind of chew through it with them. And I think, you know, and also one of the things that we noticed was that a lot of our sales were either coming through people noticing us on LinkedIn, and this is outside of kind of referrals, because we've got a really good network of people that we work with that send us a lot of business. But everything outside of that was LinkedIn, or in co-working spaces where people had heard us talking on the phone and were like, "You guys sound like you know what you're talking about." So actually, weirdly, you know, people eavesdropping on us was a great sales channel. And so all of that had gone away. I wasn't doing a very good job on my LinkedIn profile on January and February. We weren't going networking. We weren't going to talks and socializing like we usually would. And I think kind of saw the impact of that, like that kind of losing the communities on the sales for sure.
It's so scary, isn't it, when your sales or your inquiries fall away? And again, we had that situation back in 2008 when there was a kind of global financial crisis. Our key market has always been the property sector. That was a real kind of credit crunch that really hit the global property sector. You know, orders that we had in our book ready to go were mothballed, inquiries really dried up, and it's such a scary time, and it's so easy to panic, and you're full of fear for your team, fear for the future of your business. How did you you know, how have you managed to turn that around?
Yeah, so we have a meeting every month to run through how the business is performing with the team, and so that, you know, with the kind of senior members of the team, just to kind of just for everyone to feed in on what they're working with and how it's going. And we were always very open with them and kind of said, look, you know, we're concerned about this. It's nothing to worry about just yet. We'll tell you if there's any concern to worry. What we did was we tried to innovate and launch a new service that didn't go as well as planned. One of the other things that we did, more importantly, was we started to really look inward and kind of start thinking, okay, well, if this is just a blip, how are we going to come out stronger the other side, really? Well, I guess there was a bit of a light switch, really, where I kind of realized that a lot of the things that the business stood for. So, for example, I talked about my experience as an in-house marketer, and kind of all of the, you know, the experiences and the things that fed into where that came from. That I was either assuming that everyone has understood like the values and what we were working towards as a business, and I was number one, I wasn't communicating that very well with the team, and number two, that was more like when I was communicating, it was more me broadcasting it in a way that I understood. And I kind of realized pretty quickly that I'd never really taken the time to understand from the team like what the business was and what it meant to them, for us as an employer, for the service that we were running, for their aspirations, for what was important to them and their values as well. So we started this consultation period where we basically just kind of mind mapped what was important to everyone, and also what wasn't important, or really what they wanted to avoid at all costs. And from that, we kind of got to a place where we had an agreed set of culture points then, what was important to everyone. And it was really, really interesting, because I think that process was a real eye-opener for me, because our service is built all around listening, really. Like, we listen to clients, we interpret what they're trying to do, and then we translate that into a strategy. We look at their online data, we try and understand what their customers are trying to do, and we interpret that into making improvements to the strategy. But actually internally, we'd been doing a lot of broadcasting. We hadn't been doing a lot of listening, and we hadn't been doing a lot of interpreting and making improvements for that. But there was some really, really great findings from that process. Number one, a really great process was that everyone was really, really happy on the team and really, really pleased, and had a good level of job satisfaction. So that was number one. That was really, really great to find out. But number two, some of the things that came out of the consultation that were important, I would have overlooked them, or they wouldn't have even been on my radar if I hadn't asked. And actually might have been a little bit hesitant to add them in, because I didn't know if that was me. That would have been me being kind of a militant, pushy business owner, including them. Some of the key things that came back from the team was that we want to always be improving. Like, personal development is really important. Another one was that they want to be pushed, like they want to be pushed to be better and to improve. And number three was that actually being direct about what's not working is a really, really important part of learning. So they actually wanted direct feedback when things weren't working, so that they could take it into consideration and improve on it, which for me was really, really, really interesting, because we always knew that we actively try and hire people who are ambitious and competitive and take actions towards achieving what they want to achieve. And actually it's one of those things where you ask questions, you start to see things that you wouldn't have thought of yourself, but it's just so clear that they really align with the people in the business and with what you're trying to achieve if you're hiring the people that fit those principles. So the biggest impact for us, I think, like I said, we launched a failed service. We launched another service that was much more successful. But most important to me is that we developed a much better culture that fit everyone, and also that we've got a strong team, but we also come in, fingers crossed, coming out of lockdown. But knowing that everyone is all on the same page and fired up and really, really working towards these kind of team culture points.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just such an inspiring perspective on it all. I want to just pick up on a couple of the things that you've said there. For the region, we really believe in what we think of as co-production. It's actually like when you talk to the broadest diversity of people and you get everybody's perspectives, then you uncover wisdom that you just would not think of on your own. And we're applying that on a kind of regional level, bringing together, huge diversity of different perspectives from across the region to talk about how can we turn the ship around, how can we help the region be successful. But what you've described there is, to my mind, it's that same process, but on a really micro level within your own team, within your own organization. And I've similarly seen how powerful that can be, when you really take the time to involve your team in making big decisions, or just sharing their perspectives on what the challenges are and what the opportunities are, and the stuff that you just wouldn't have thought of on your own. But also, you can't tell people to be motivated in their job. You can't tell people, invest in your own personal development. They can only do that for themselves. And so giving that sense of ownership over their own career paths and their own career development, I just think is really powerful, and builds that sense that you're all in it together, which I just don't, money can't buy that in a company. That is just priceless, isn't it? When you're all pulling in the same direction. I just think that's fantastic. And yeah, looking inward, like you say, we've all had those difficult times, and I'm sure many people listening to this podcast episode now, perhaps in a sort of challenging circumstance in their businesses, or looking at what's next, and that lesson of just take stock, take a breath, look at your culture, look at your values, and include the whole team in that conversation. That kind of honesty, it's just so important. So are you feeling more positive? Has that had outward results as well as just a kind of morale boost for everybody?
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things to kind of say as well is that we we work with a business coach, Cassandra Boddington, who's been fantastic through this as well. And one of, I guess, as a message, if people are thinking that they would like to go through a more collaborative approach, really, like, one of the things that we were kind of going up against was a resistance to chaos. Like, we didn't want to create chaos, and we kind of thought that maybe having an open conversation would just cause loads and loads of chaos, and it just didn't. Like, when you have a team that, when you really try hard to hire the right people, and you know that you've got a really good mix of people with the right attitude and the right values and the right skills, the right conversations happen and the right things come out of the discussions. Cassandra really championed pushing us towards that more collaborative approach, because we were always kind of like, well, how do you control it? How do you measure it? How do you plan for it? How do you fit it into this nice, neat little box? And yeah, so I'd just say, like, if you're worried about chaos, just don't worry. Just take the plunge. If it doesn't work, you don't have to run with it at the end of the day.
I mean, I think, collaboration is messy, isn't it, and unpredictable, but you've got to kind of go with the process. And I also thought, as you were speaking, that I'd give a plug for another of our members, which is the ION Leadership Programme at Swansea University. So Zoe's enrolled on this at the moment, and I think this year, as a part of sort of COVID response, the ION Leadership Programme is actually free for leaders and business owners to enrol on. And I know that they really champion this kind of way of working, and this attitude about collaborative leadership. So again, that's there for people who are in business in the region, and it's free. So I wanted to give a quick plug to that. But it sounds like working with a business coach has been similarly valuable for you.
Yeah, incredibly so. I can't encourage it enough. I played in a band when I was younger, and I always kind of thought, well, if I had a guitar teacher earlier, I'd have been a better guitarist. I played basketball kind of to a fairly competitive level, like, local leagues and things like that, and always thought I could have been better at basketball if I'd had a coach earlier. So when we came to business, I wasn't going to make the same mistake 3 times, and straight away, as soon as we started becoming responsible for employing people, I spoke to Cassandra and brought her on as a coach. One of the things that I also did was to kind of become a hermit for 3 days and just go, right, I'm going to focus on our sales and marketing, and I'm going to put together a kind of targeted marketing approach to reach new people and to start drumming up conversations if they're not happening. And as I was starting to kind of work on that, I hadn't like let anything out into the wild yet. But over those 3 days, I had 3 phone calls from quite big opportunities. Cut a long story short, basically in March, we had 6 inquiries versus the 0 that we'd had in January and February. 5 of them have already turned into customers. One of them is very likely to become a customer over these next couple of weeks. Whether it was being more secure and more confident that made us take better, stronger action that led to better results, I'm not too sure, but we definitely saw a dramatic turnaround after doing that, and we've continued to see that happening. And it could also be down to the environment and the actual commercial environment of things changing with COVID and everything like that. But there's definitely no doubt in my mind that we're coming out of this situation so much more stronger, so much more confident, so much more positive, and just like it feels like we're on such a better track than we were on before as a result of doing that work.
Yeah, I'm never quite sure whether I believe in the law of attraction, but I certainly do believe that the more confident and the more positive our own mindsets are, it brings results in the real world. And you can't always understand where those have come from, and it takes quite a lot of faith and belief that this will come good in the end. But yeah, I'm a big believer in looking inward, working internally on yourself on an individual level and on an organizational level, and for me on a regional level, looking to our strengths, looking to our culture, having a shared vision. I think it works at every level, and and then it attracts one way or another, or you're well placed to take advantage of the opportunities as they come. So yeah, that's just fantastic to hear that you guys are on a good track. What are you excited about over the next couple of months?
I'm particularly excited about one of the services that have come to the fore over lockdown, I think. So our, like I kind of said, like our core values are about being transparent and conscientious and really pushing for excellence. No marketing agency has a 100% track record. if a marketing agency says they have a 100% track record, or if they guarantee you results, kind of have to be quite careful, because that it's just one of those things that there are a few tricks that you can do to predict results, but you never really know how things are going to work until you put them out into the wild. One of the things that we were finding on kind of campaigns that we were running that weren't working is that there's two sides of online advertising. There's the campaigns that you run, and managing those campaigns and optimizing them and making sure they're working from a management level. But there's also then what happens when people engage with those campaigns and go to a website. And actually it's how the campaign and how the website or the landing page or whatever you have in play interact with each other that makes a successful campaign. And we were getting to this point where we were kind of, the campaign is really well optimized. We can see that people are resonating with it. They're commenting positively on social ads. They're clicking through to the website. They're having a good old nose. Like, realistically, we can't think of any reason why they wouldn't be taking action or converting, other than the website is not helping them to do that. And while it was true, we would only ever have that conversation as a last resort, because we hate pointing the finger to, well, it's this is outside of our control, and you have to spend more money to fix it. Like, we hated that conversation. So we've always offered kind of landing page building, and we've kind of turned that into more of a conversion experience side of the service. So we're now doing advertising, but we're also really getting much more involved in that conversion experience and user journey side of the service, because we don't want to be in that situation where we're pointing fingers and going, well, that's that problem over there. Like, that's nothing to do with us. We kind of want to go, give us your trust. We'll work in partnership with you. Rest assured, we will do everything within our power to make this work, and we'll take everything. We'll take control of everything needed to make this work, so that if it doesn't work, we can't blame anyone but ourselves. And we're really, really in a much more confident position as a result of that. And I think clients are really appreciating that approach more as well. So, like I said, we've always kind of offered this as a service, but kind of in late 2020, we enrolled in the Funnelytics, which is like an analytics software, really, really good innovative analytics software for online conversion journeys. And they actually offer a program for agencies. And so we enrolled in that, and we joined 150 other expert funnel builders, and kind of 3 mentors who give kind of weekly online coaching. And that just to have that community of people in the same space and have this expert advice whilst innovating on the service and everything that went with it, like that's been really, really huge for us as well. And that's what we're particularly excited about.
Amazing. Yeah. And do you work with clients locally, local businesses across the region, as well as kind of bigger UK and national companies? Who are your clients?
Yeah, so we've been really privileged to be working with Cold Town Coffee over the lockdown. So they came on board, and we're really, really loving working with them, and their campaigns are working really, really well. So locally, I mean, not kind of in the Swansea Bay region, but one of our most recent clients is Mazuma Accountants, and we're just kind of getting up and running with those guys. But again, really, really pleased to be working with another innovative Welsh business. We have a mix, I think, is the honest answer. We have businesses in Carmarthenshire, Swansea, Bridgend, Cardiff, Pembrokeshire. We have businesses in each of those counties that we're working with, but then we do also have businesses in Ireland and London and the Midlands and kind of all other different places as well.
That's the benefit of being in digital, isn't it? Your clients can be anywhere, and really you can be anywhere, and you can still build a successful company. It's been really inspiring to hear from you and your whole mindset on your business and the development of your company, your team, your services. Certainly for me, I think it's just always great to hear from other entrepreneurs about what they're doing and the journey they're on, and you've been really honest, so I really appreciate that. So we're privileged to have you guys on board as members of For the Region. Talk a little bit about why you've joined For the Region and what your hopes are for South West Wales.
Yeah, awesome. So I mean, I guess ever since being part of the tourism team for, Swansea Council, like, it really gave me you always have that sense of being proud of where you're from. I think that's definitely one of the things that always comes out of the For the Region meetings, is that real sense of pride. But actually working in a tourism capacity, it makes you take a step back and kind of really think about all of the things and how to communicate it, and like how they really make you feel and how you want to share it with others. So for sure, like, that really is always kind of that was the catalyst for getting me really kind of interested and excited and kind of conscious of talking about everything that the area has to offer. Like, for the future of the area, I think it's awesome, because I've always kind of loved the organic, kind of friendly approach. As you get further west in Wales, you kind of have Cardiff, which is kind of very dynamic and very exciting and exhilarating. And then once you kind of get closer west, you have that, but it's a different flavor of it. It's kind of more organic, which again is like, both of them are great, but kind of growing up in that environment, that's really what gets me excited. If you look at Swansea and all of the investment that's going into it, and kind of the focus on the tourism and the focus on the retail offering, and the new arena and the kind of the bridge that's bringing both sides of the centre of the city together. If you look at all of the innovation in the kind of the tourism attraction providers, and if you look at Carmarthenshire, who are doing loads of really innovative work with cycling and everything like that, I think it's a really, really interesting space. And you can just always continue to see like really huge strides that are being taken forward. And I really think that there's a real opportunity for local authorities and organisations of private businesses, like, to basically maximise their firepower, right? If they work together, there's huge networks and huge resources that you can tap into. So that's really, really it. I think being a member of For the Region is important for me, because number one, I want to be part of the community. I want to feel like I'm giving back to the community by hopefully offering a different perspective, and all different perspectives are important, right? And also, I think for me, it's one of the really, really interesting and useful things that come out of the meeting, is that you have so many people in so many different industries who are all part of different meetings and privy to different conversations, where you also almost get like the kind of the one-page overviews of what's actually going on in the industry and what's actually being worked on. So to be aware of what's being worked on and who's being responsible for it and what timelines look like, and also to meet fellow business owners and people invested in the region it's fantastic.
Oh, thanks for talking about that a little bit, Louis. I think that's really our goal, is to bring so many diverse perspectives together into different conversations around a huge variation of different topics. But you get a really great overview of everything that's happening. You get an insight into different sectors, different industries, and you just learn so much about different opportunities across the region. I think it makes us just feel incredibly hopeful and optimistic and empowered about the future of South West Wales. But it's great to hear that that you appreciate that side of it as well. It's not networking, it's really building relationships with a purpose and coming to understand how much else is going on. But it's people like you that make the Alliance what it is. So we really appreciate your contributions in all of our meetings, and it's been great to have half an hour to sit and chat and hear a bit more about your business as well. So thanks so much for taking the time today.
You're too kind, Dawn. Thank you very much.
And for all of those of you who are listening, I hope you found that an inspiring and motivational conversation with Louis today. If you're a member of For the Region, then do get in touch and come and share your good news stories and your lessons learned with us. We always love to understand more about what our members are up to. And if you're not yet a member, head on over to our website, fortheregion.org.uk, and sign up. But for now, that's the end of another episode of Build Back Better. Tune in again next week. Bye for now.